My name is Irvin, 36 years old, and I never thought a single text message could shatter 18 years of pretending we were a normal family. The message from my father was brutally clear. We're cutting all ties. Don't come around ever again. My sister Amanda reacted by sending a heart emoji, co-signing my exile without hesitation. My response was simple but devastating. I'll pull my name from all loans tomorrow. By midnight, the family group chat exploded with all caps shouting. I had finally found my power. Before diving into this story, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if family drama hits close to home. Growing up in Lake Forest, an affluent suburb just north of Chicago, my childhood home was the kind of place featured in architectural magazines. 4,000 square feet of pristine white carpets, crystal vases filled with fresh flowers weekly, and furniture that looked beautiful but felt uncomfortable, much like our family dynamic. My father Raymond built his real estate empire through sheer determination and an uncompromising attention to detail that extended to every aspect of our lives, including his children. Stand up straight, Irvin. First impressions matter, he would say, straightening my tie before church every Sunday. These weren't gentle reminders, but commands delivered with a critical eye that always found something lacking. My sister Amanda, 2 years younger than me, somehow escaped this scrutiny. While I received lectures about my B+ in calculus, her same grade earned praise for effort. Your sister applies herself consistently. You coast on natural talent. My father would explain when I questioned the double standard. My mother Margaret, soft-spoken and elegant, would squeeze my shoulder afterward and whisper, "He just sees your potential." She was the buffer between his demanding nature and my growing resentment, translating his criticism into something that sounded like care. Our family photos told a story of achievement and harmony, Raymond in custom suits, Margaret in tasteful dresses, Amanda and I with straight teeth and forced smiles. What the pictures couldn't capture was the tension humming beneath the surface, the walking on eggshells, the constant fear of disappointing my father. When I was 18, my mother died after a swift battle with pancreatic cancer. The funeral was meticulously planned, just as she would have wanted, Raymond said. I remember standing beside her casket feeling unmoored, while my father greeted mourners with the same composed efficiency he brought to business meetings. Amanda clung to him, her grief permitted and public, while mine festered privately. 11 months later, 11 months and 3 days. To be exact, Raymond married Diana, a divorced interior designer he met while renovating one of his properties. She arrived in our home with new furniture arrangements and a practiced way of saying, "Your mother would have wanted us to be happy," whenever Amanda or I showed any resistance to the swift replacement. College offered escape. I chose Northwestern partly for its reputation, but mostly for its proximity, close enough to visit occasionally, but far enough to breathe. During those 4 years, I called home weekly, out of obligation, visited for holidays, and felt the weight of guilt whenever I enjoyed the freedom. Diana redecorated my bedroom into a multi-purpose space by sophomore year. Amanda, meanwhile, attended University of Chicago and returned home every weekend, maintaining her position as the daughter who cared enough to stay connected. Your father misses you. My mother had once told me during a rare moment of acknowledging the tension. He just doesn't know how to show it. After her death, I kept searching for signs of that hidden affection, interpreting every invitation to family dinner as potential evidence. Hope is a stubborn thing, outlasting even the most compelling evidence to the contrary. The pristine family home that felt like a museum gradually became Diana's showplace. My childhood photos were relegated to a single hallway wall, while professional portraits of Raymond and Diana dominated the main living areas. Amanda adapted seamlessly, calling Diana Mom within a year. I never could. The word stuck in my throat, loyalty to my mother's memory, preventing the syllable from forming. Diana is just trying to be part of the family, Raymond would lecture whenever I visited. Your attitude makes things difficult for everyone. The implication was clear. I was the problem, the one disrupting the perfect family narrative. Amanda's easy acceptance was the model I should follow. Throughout college and into my early 20s, I attempted to please my father with achievements I thought would matter: Dean's List internships at prestigious companies, a good job after graduation. Each accomplishment was acknowledged with a nod and immediately followed by a question about my next goal. Nothing was ever enough. Meanwhile, Amanda's decision to major in business, like our father, was celebrated with a new car. Her engagement to James, the son of one of Raymond's golf buddies, merited a lavish party. Family is everything Raymond would toast at these gatherings. His arm around Diana, his eyes finding mine across the room, with a challenge I could never quite decipher. Was he daring me to contradict him? Or pleading with me to believe the performance? I maintained contact out of a complex mixture of obligation, lingering hope for approval, and the peculiar bond that ties us to family even when it hurts. Each holiday, each birthday dinner, each family vacation was another chance for things to be different. For 18 years after my mother died, I kept showing up, kept trying, kept believing that somewhere beneath the criticism and control was the love my mother had promised existed. I was wrong. After graduating with a marketing degree, I landed a position at a mid-sized digital agency in Chicago. The salary was decent, not extravagant, but enough to rent a comfortable apartment in Wicker Park and start building a life independent from my father's influence. This newfound financial freedom lasted exactly 8 months and 14 days. "This is an opportunity I want the family to benefit from," Raymond explained over dinner at Gibson's, his favorite steakhouse. A lakefront property in Lake Geneva with tremendous potential. His voice had that familiar tone of certainty that expected no questions, only compliance. "The renovations require additional capital, and having you as a cosigner strengthens the loan application." I was 23 then, still eager for his approval and naive about the implications. "How much are we talking about?" I asked. "$85,000, he replied casually, as though mentioning the price of a dinner. Diana nodded approvingly, while Amanda, who was also present, looked excited about the prospect of a family vacation home. "That seems like a lot," I said hesitantly. "It's an investment in our family's future." Irvin, Raymond countered, his tone sharpening slightly. "When your mother and I started out, we took bigger risks with less security. Are you saying you don't want to contribute to the family?" And there it was, the subtle manipulation that positioned any hesitation as selfishness, any question as disloyalty. I signed the papers the following week. The Lake Geneva property was just the beginning. 2 years later came a $150,000 loan for Amanda and James's first house, a charming colonial in Winnetka. "We're helping both our children establish themselves," Raymond explained, when I asked why I hadn't received similar assistance for my own housing. "Your sister is starting a family. You're still single." Diana added, the implication clear that my lifestyle choices somehow justified the disparity. Then came the biggest entanglement, $220,000 for my father's new commercial real estate venture. "This will diversify our family holdings," Raymond explained during another steakhouse meeting, this time with his financial advisor present to lend legitimacy to the request. "The returns will benefit all of us, especially in your retirement years." By my 30th birthday, I had co-signed for over $450,000 in loans while having no control over the assets they purchased. Raymond managed everything: the payments, the paperwork, the profits. My signature provided the credit score and additional income verification the banks required, while the benefits flowed elsewhere. The arrangement began to unravel when I met Heather, a straightforward accountant who asked questions I had been avoiding. "Why are you liable for loans on properties you don't control?" she wondered. After I mentioned the family finances during our third date, "That's not an investment, that's a liability." Her clarity was both refreshing and terrifying. When I tried explaining the family dynamics, how Raymond had always handled financial matters, how this was about trust and family support, she looked skeptical. "Family support should go both ways," she said simply. Trevor, my best friend since college, was less diplomatic. "Dude, your father is using you as a financial safety net," he pointed out during a Bears game at his apartment. "If these investments are so solid, why does he need your credit score to back them up?" These outside perspectives began cracking the foundation of what I had accepted as normal family obligation. I checked my credit report for the first time in years and discovered the impact these loans had on my financial profile. My debt-to-income ratio made qualifying for my own mortgage nearly impossible. The financial freedom I thought I was building had been quietly mortgaged to fund my family's lifestyle. When I tentatively raised concerns during a family dinner, Raymond dismissed them instantly. "These are solid investments with scheduled returns," he assured me with the wave of a hand. "Everything is being handled. Your worry shows a lack of understanding about business. Diana chimed in with her usual passive-aggressive support. Raymond has managed millions in real estate for decades, Irvin. I think he knows a bit more about financial planning than you do. The condescension was packaged as concern her specialty. Amanda, now pregnant with her first child, added her own guilt trip. These investments are for the whole family's future, including my baby, your niece or nephew. Don't you care about that? Each time I attempted to establish boundaries, the same tactics emerged. Dismissal of my concerns, appeals to family loyalty implications, that I was financially ignorant, and guilt about depriving future generations. The pressure was relentless and effective. I would leave these conversations questioning my own judgment, wondering if I was being selfish for wanting control over my financial future. Meanwhile, Heather's influence in my life grew stronger. Unlike my family, she validated my concerns and encouraged me to seek professional financial advice. Love shouldn't come with financial handcuffs, she said one evening, as we discussed my family situation. Healthy families support each other's independence, not create dependencies. Trevor was even more direct. They've got you on a leash, man. Every time you try to walk your own path, they yank you back with guilt and obligation. That's not family, that's control. Their perspectives were like oxygen to someone who had been slowly suffocating. I began to see the pattern of emotional manipulation that had kept me financially entangled despite my growing discomfort. Raymond didn't just want my signature on loans. He wanted the power that came from being the family patriarch, controlling everyone's financial destiny. As my awareness grew, so did my resentment. Every family gathering became an exercise in restraint as I watched Amanda and James enjoy the benefits of family investments that technically existed on my credit report. The Lake Geneva property hosted their family vacations while I was welcome any time, as though I should be grateful for access to something my signature had helped purchase. The financial web Raymond had woven was sophisticated and binding. Each loan connected to another, each investment leveraged for the next opportunity. Attempting to extract myself from one would create ripple effects throughout the entire structure, which was precisely the point. The complexity ensured compliance through intimidation. You wouldn't want to damage the family's financial standing, was Raymond's subtle warning whenever I asked too many questions. By my 35th birthday, I realized I was trapped in a system designed to benefit everyone but me. My credit was tied up in family properties I didn't control. My financial independence was compromised by obligations I didn't fully understand when accepting them. My relationships outside the family were strained by restrictions that stemmed from these entanglements. Something had to change. I just didn't realize how explosive that change would be. The breaking point arrived on my 36th birthday. Raymond had reserved a private room at Spiaggia, an upscale Italian restaurant on Michigan Avenue, with views of the lake. The setting was elegant, the wine expensive, the tension palpable beneath the polished surface of family celebration. To another year of success and family unity, Raymond toasted, raising his glass of Barolo. Diana, Amanda, James, and I clinked glasses obediently. I noticed Trevor's words, echoing in my mind, as I sipped. They've trained you to perform on command. The appetizers had barely been cleared when Raymond leaned forward with that familiar look of contained excitement he got when discussing business opportunities. I've been working on something significant, he announced, his voice dropping slightly, as though sharing a valuable secret. A commercial development in the West Loop. Ground floor retail. 3 floors of luxury apartments and a rooftop restaurant with views of the skyline. Amanda and James exchanged excited glances. That's prime real estate, James commented, already calculating the potential returns. Exactly. Raymond nodded appreciatively at his son-in-law's business acumen. The financing is nearly complete. We just need to finalize a few details. His eyes shifted to me, and I felt my stomach tighten. The bank requires additional income verification for the primary loan. Given your promotion last quarter, your financial profile would complete the package perfectly. There it was, the real reason for the lavish birthday dinner. Not celebration, but procurement. How much? I asked quietly. $350,000 for the initial phase, Raymond replied. The projected returns are exceptional conservative estimates at 15% annually once fully leased. Amanda was already scrolling through her phone. The West Loop is booming, she confirmed. This could be the best family investment yet. I can't. I said the words emerging before I fully formed the thought. A moment of silence followed. Raymond's expression didn't change, but his eyes hardened slightly. Can't or won't, he asked. Both, I replied, feeling a strange calm despite the tension. I'm overextended already with the existing loans. My financial advisor recommended against taking on any additional debt. Diana's eyebrows rose. You consulted a financial advisor about family matters? Yes, I said simply. About my financial position which affects my future. Raymond set down his wine glass with careful precision. I was unaware you felt the need for outside financial counsel. The family investments have been carefully structured for everyone's benefit. That's just it. I continued, the calm still sustaining me. I don't see the benefit to me. My name is on loans totaling nearly $500,000 for properties I don't control or profit from. Amanda's expression shifted from surprise to indignation. These are family investments, Irvin. We all benefit in different ways. How have I benefited? I asked her directly. You and James received a down payment for your house. You use the Lake Geneva property regularly. You receive distributions from the commercial ventures. What exactly has been my share? The future returns, Raymond began, but I interrupted him for perhaps the first time in my adult life. Future returns that never materialize for me. Every profit gets rolled into the next venture. Meanwhile, I can't qualify for my own mortgage because of my debt-to-income ratio from these family loans. Diana made a small noise of disapproval. I think you're being rather selfish, considering all Raymond has done for you. What exactly has he done for me? I asked, genuinely curious about her perception. Provided you with every advantage, she replied immediately. Private school, college education, family connections for your career. My mother left a college fund, I corrected her. And I got my job through campus, recruiting, not family connections. Raymond's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. This discussion is becoming unproductive. Perhaps we should return to it when you're feeling less. He paused, searching for a word that wouldn't sound overtly critical, defensive. I'm not being defensive, I replied. I'm declining to co-sign another loan. That's a financial decision, not an emotional one. Amanda's eyes filled with tears right on cue. You're ruining everything, she said, her voice catching dramatically. This development was going to fund college accounts for your nieces and nephews. The emotional manipulation was so transparent now that I could recognize it. The tears, the appeals to family, the implied selfishness of my position, all tactics to override my rational decision with guilt. I'm sorry, but my answer is still no, I said firmly. Raymond stared at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, perhaps surprise, mixed with calculation, as though reassessing a property that had unexpectedly decreased in value. Very well, he said finally. Let's enjoy the rest of the dinner. It is, after all, your birthday. The remainder of the meal progressed with strained conversation about safe topics, the weather, Amanda's children, a recent gallery opening Diana had attended. I excused myself shortly after dessert, claiming an early meeting the next day. We'll discuss this further, Raymond said, as I prepared to leave, making it clear the matter wasn't closed in his mind. The following week brought silence from my family. No calls, no texts, no emails. This was another familiar tactic, the silent treatment designed to make me reconsider my position. In previous disagreements, I had always been the one to reach out first, to apologize for causing tension, to seek reconciliation at the cost of my own boundaries. This time was different. I used the week to meet with a financial advisor recommended by Heather, a woman named Jillian, who specialized in untangling complex family financial situations. Based on what you've shared, these arrangements would be concerning, even if they were fully documented, Jillian told me, after reviewing the loan paperwork I had copies of. But several of these agreements lack clear repayment terms or have expired provisions that were never formally renewed. What does that mean exactly? I asked. It means you're carrying significant liability with minimal legal protection, she explained. If payments aren't made, your credit suffers. If the investments fail, you're responsible for the debt. But your control over these outcomes is essentially non-existent. She helped me understand the true extent of my financial entanglement and the steps required to protect myself going forward. The picture wasn't pretty. Several of the loans showed irregular payment histories. The Lake Geneva property had a second mortgage I hadn't been informed about. The commercial property investments were leveraged in ways that significantly increased their risk profile. Armed with this knowledge, I attempted to call my father to discuss the situation rationally. He answered on the third ring. "I've been meeting with a financial advisor," I began, after a brief greeting. "I'm your financial advisor," he interrupted his tone, indicating he found the very idea insulting. "You're my father, not my advisor," I replied. "And there are serious issues with the loan structures that—" "This is family business," he cut me off again. "Outside advisors don't understand our arrangements." "That's the problem. These aren't clearly defined arrangements. They're—" The call ended abruptly. Raymond had hung up on me. I stared at my phone in disbelief. 36 years old, and my father still couldn't engage in a conversation where I expressed independent thought. I tried calling back. The call went straight to voicemail. I sent a text. "We need to discuss the loan situation. This is important." No response came that day, or the next. By the third day of silence, I began to understand that Raymond had no intention of having a rational discussion about financial boundaries. The only acceptable outcome in his mind was my continued compliance. The breaking point had arrived, though I didn't recognize it yet. The comfortable pattern of 18 years, my resistance, followed by capitulation, was shifting. This time, I wasn't backing down. This time, the consequences would reshape our family forever. The text message arrived at 2:17 on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was reviewing client analytics at my desk. The notification showed my father's name, and for a moment, I felt relief, assuming he was finally ready to discuss the loan situation rationally. The actual message shattered that assumption instantly. "We're cutting all ties. Don't come around ever again." My hands began trembling so violently, I had to set the phone down on my desk. The words were stark, final, unambiguous. No explanation, no context, no opening for discussion. Just banishment delivered in 10 cold words. Before I could formulate any response, a notification from the family group chat appeared. Amanda had reacted to our father's message with a heart emoji. A simple red heart, co-signing my exile, without hesitation or question. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Amanda and I had our differences, but I had always believed some core of sibling loyalty existed beneath the competition our father had fostered between us. Her heart emoji revealed the truth: her allegiance was to Raymond, and the financial benefits he controlled, not to her brother. I sat motionless, staring at the screen, my breathing shallow and rapid. Colleagues passed my office door, unaware that my entire family identity was imploding in real time. The marketing report on my computer screen blurred as I tried to process what was happening. This wasn't just an argument or temporary estrangement. This was Raymond exercising what he believed was his ultimate power, the ability to excommunicate a family member who challenged his authority. The finality of it struck me with unexpected clarity. 18 years of trying to earn approval, of maintaining connection, despite the manipulation of hoping for change, all erased with a text message. My phone rang, displaying Trevor's name. I answered mechanically. "Lunch?" he asked cheerfully. He cut me off. I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "My father just texted that they're cutting all ties." Amanda supported him. "Holy shit," Trevor replied. "Where are you? I'm coming over." 20 minutes later, we sat in a coffee shop across from my office building. I showed him the messages, my hands still not entirely steady. "This is about the loan you refused to sign, isn't it?" Trevor asked, his expression darkening. I nodded. "Apparently family membership requires financial compliance." "This isn't about family, Irvin. This is about control and money. This is financial abuse, pure and simple." The term landed with uncomfortable accuracy. Financial abuse. I had never applied that concept to my situation, but it fit perfectly: the entanglement, the lack of transparency, the manipulation, the consequences for non-compliance. "What are you going to do?" Trevor asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to apologize to fix this somehow." Trevor leaned forward. "Fix what? You didn't break anything. You set a reasonable boundary about your financial future, and your father responded by disowning you. That's not normal, man. That's not how healthy families function. I called Heather next, needing her perspective. Her response was immediate and supportive. "Come over tonight," she said. "We'll figure this out together." That evening, sitting in Heather's apartment, the initial shock began transitioning to clarity. She listened as I explained what had happened, then asked a simple question that changed everything. "What would you tell a friend in this situation?" The answer came easily. I would tell them to protect themselves, to recognize the manipulation, to not sacrifice their financial future for people who clearly didn't have their best interests at heart. "Then that's what you should do," Heather said gently. "You deserve the same care you'd give a friend." The next morning, I contacted the attorney. Jillian had recommended a specialist in financial recovery named Samuel Winters. He reviewed my situation with professional detachment that was somehow comforting. "Based on the documentation you've provided, there are several avenues to address these loans," he explained. "The first step is formally notifying the lenders about the nature of these agreements and your intention to remove yourself as a guarantor." "Can I do that?" I asked, surprised. "In cases where there's evidence of pressure or misrepresentation, yes. Several of these loans show irregularities that strengthen your position. The fact that you receive no benefit from or control over these assets while bearing the liability is problematic from a legal perspective." Over the next 2 days, I learned more about my legal options, the process for protecting my credit, and the potential timeline for resolving the entanglement. The attorney was honest about the challenges, but confident that a resolution was possible. "Be prepared for resistance," he warned. "When financial control is threatened, the response is often aggressive." With a clearer understanding of my path forward, I finally composed my response to Raymond's text. I wrote and deleted multiple versions, trying to find the right tone. Not emotional, not apologetic, not angry, just clear and firm. After several attempts, I settled on simple directness. "I'll pull my name from all loans tomorrow." I sent the message at 7:30 that evening, then turned my phone to silent and tried to focus on a documentary Heather had suggested to distract me. Less than an hour later, curiosity compelled me to check for responses. The family group chat had exploded. Raymond had sent a paragraph in all capital letters. "You have no right to threaten the family's financial stability. This is betrayal of the worst kind. You will cause irreparable damage to all of us." Diana had added her own condemnation. "After everything this family has done for you, this is how you repay Raymond's generosity, disgraceful." Amanda's messages had shifted dramatically from her earlier heart emoji. "Please don't do this, Irvin," she wrote. "Think about my kids. Think about what this will do to all of us." James had joined the conversation as well. "This is going to destroy everything your father built. Is that really what you want?" Message after message poured in, alternating between threats, guilt trips, and dire predictions about the consequences of my actions. The unified front was telling not one family member questioned why Raymond had cut ties with me in the first place. Not one acknowledged the unfairness of the financial arrangements. Their only concern was maintaining the status quo that benefited them. The most revealing message came from Raymond late that night. "You owe everything you have to this family. Without my guidance and support, you would have nothing. This action will confirm what I've always known: you lack the character to be part of this family." In that moment, the last illusion shattered. This wasn't love. This wasn't family. This was a business arrangement disguised as kinship, with loyalty measured in financial compliance rather than genuine care. I turned off my phone completely and slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I met Attorney Winters at his downtown office at 8 o'clock sharp. The elegant corner suite projected exactly the kind of confident competence I needed. "I've prepared the initial notifications," he said, sliding a folder across his desk. "Once you sign these, we'll send them to all relevant financial institutions, formally initiating the process to review your liability on these loans." The documents outlined the circumstances under which I had co-signed the loans, including the lack of benefit to me, the absence of clear terms in some cases, and the evidence suggesting potential misrepresentation. Signing them felt both terrifying and liberating, the first concrete step toward financial independence from my family. What happens next? I asked after signing the last page. The banks will launch internal reviews, Attorney Winters explained. In cases like this, they typically freeze the accounts pending investigation to prevent any additional activity that might constitute fraud or misappropriation. Will that affect the properties immediately? I asked, thinking of Amanda's family. Potentially, yes. Any automatic payments may be suspended, which could trigger default notices if alternate payment arrangements aren't made. The weight of what I was initiating settled on me. This wasn't just about removing my name from paperwork. It would have real consequences for my family's financial situation. For a moment, guilt threatened to overwhelm my resolve. Having second thoughts, Attorney Winters asked, noticing my hesitation. Just realizing the impact this will have. He nodded sympathetically. Financial entanglement with family is always complex. But remember, you didn't create this situation. You're simply protecting yourself from liability that should never have been yours to bear. By noon, the notifications had been delivered electronically to all relevant financial institutions. By 1 o'clock, my phone was ringing continuously with calls from Raymond, which I sent directly to voicemail. By 2, I had an email from the Human Resources Director at my company informing me that someone claiming to be my father had called repeatedly asking to speak with me about an urgent family matter. I've instructed reception not to put through any more of these calls, she wrote. Please let me know if you need any additional support. I thanked her and briefly explained that I was dealing with a personal boundary issue with family. Her supportive response reinforced that my decision was reasonable, normal, healthy workplaces protected employees from harassment, even when it came from family members. By the end of the day, I had 27 missed calls, 14 voicemails, and 39 text messages across various platforms. I listened to just one voicemail from Amanda, her voice tearful and accusatory. The bank froze the Lake Geneva property account, she said. Dad is furious. They're saying possible fraud investigation. How could you do this to us? My kids were supposed to go there this weekend. You're destroying our family over what pride. Call me back immediately. Her message contained no recognition that the fraud being investigated wasn't my doing, but potentially Raymond's. No acknowledgement that I had legitimate reasons for my actions. Just blame for disrupting the family system, regardless of how that system had harmed me. Trevor came over that evening bringing pizza and moral support. How are you holding up? He asked, as we sat in my living room. Better than expected, I admitted. There's something clarifying about seeing exactly how conditional their love was. It makes the decision easier. Have you heard from any other relatives? Trevor asked. I nodded. My mother's sister called. Apparently Raymond has been calling everyone, telling them I've had some kind of breakdown and am making irrational financial decisions that are hurting the family. Classic. Trevor shook his head. When manipulation fails, discredit the person who's resisting. My Aunt Elaine had been skeptical of Raymond's version, having witnessed his controlling behavior during her sister's lifetime. Your mother would be proud of you for standing up for yourself, she told me, the first family member to offer support rather than condemnation. Over the next few days, the financial unraveling accelerated. I received formal notices from 3 banks acknowledging receipt of my fraud concerns and confirming that investigations had been initiated. Raymond's business partners began calling me directly, their tones ranging from conciliatory to threatening as they tried to understand why their financing had suddenly been disrupted. Your father built something remarkable, said Howard Jensen, Raymond's longest-standing business associate. I've known you since you were a boy, Irvin. Whatever disagreement you're having, this isn't the way to resolve it. This isn't a disagreement, I explained calmly. My father has been using my credit and income to secure loans for properties I have no control over or benefit from. When I refused to co-sign another loan, he cut all ties with me via text message. I'm simply protecting myself financially. The silence that followed suggested this narrative differed significantly from what Raymond had shared. I see, Howard finally said. That presents a different picture entirely. Diana sent a scathing email on day 5, subject line, Your selfishness knows no bounds. Raymond has not slept properly since your vindictive actions began, she wrote. 30 years of business relationships are being damaged because you couldn't be bothered to support your family. Everyone can now see exactly who you really are. Selfish, ungrateful, and destructive. Your mother would be ashamed. The mention of my mother stung, but I recognized it as another manipulation tactic. Diana had barely known my mother and had no standing to claim knowledge of what would shame her. The most surprising contact came from James, Amanda's husband, who called from an unfamiliar number after I had blocked both his and Amanda's regular phones. "Listen," he began without preamble. "This situation is getting out of hand. Raymond is talking about legal action against you for interfering with business relationships. Amanda is beside herself. There has to be a way to resolve this that doesn't destroy everything." "I'm open to resolution," I replied honestly. "But it has to include removing my name from all these loans and a clear agreement about boundaries going forward." "That's not realistic," James argued. "These properties are leveraged based on your income as part of the qualification. Removing your name would require refinancing everything, which isn't possible in the current market." "Then I guess we have a problem," I said, "because I'm not willing to remain legally liable for loans I have no control over." "What if?" James hesitated. "What if Raymond agreed to transfer partial ownership of some properties to you? Would that address your concerns?" The offer revealed just how desperate the situation had become. Raymond would never willingly share ownership of his precious real estate empire unless the alternative was losing it entirely. Any resolution would need to be legally binding and include full financial transparency. I said carefully, "I'd have my attorney review any proposal." "I'll talk to Raymond," James promised, though his tone suggested limited optimism. No proposal materialized. Instead, 3 days later, I received a formal letter from Bernard Wilson, Raymond's attorney, threatening legal action for malicious interference with business relationships and defamation of character. Attorney Winters reviewed the letter and laughed without humor. "This is desperation masquerading as legal strategy," he said. "They have no viable case against you for protecting yourself from potential fraud. If anything, this letter strengthens our position by demonstrating the lengths they'll go to maintain the status quo." As the first month of separation continued, the practical impacts of the financial investigation became increasingly apparent. The Lake Geneva property went into technical default when automatic payments were suspended. Amanda and James had to postpone purchasing a new vehicle they had been planning to finance. Most significantly, Raymond's latest commercial development project stalled completely when the primary lender withdrew pending resolution of the fraud investigation. The family that had cut ties with me now wanted desperately to reconnect, not out of love or regret, but out of financial necessity. The irony wasn't lost on me. For 18 years, I had craved genuine connection while accepting financial exploitation as the price of family belonging. Now that the financial arrangement was threatened, suddenly I was worth contacting again. Through it all, Heather remained my steadfast support, never questioning my right to protect myself, never suggesting I should sacrifice my future for people who had shown so clearly that they valued me only for my financial utility. "Family is supposed to lift you up, not drain you dry," she said one evening, as we discussed the latest developments. "Real love doesn't come with loan agreements attached." As difficult as the separation was, each day brought increasing clarity. The fog of manipulation that had clouded my judgment for years was lifting, revealing the true nature of what I had accepted as family relationships. The path forward wasn't easy, but for the first time in my adult life, it was truly mine. The legal proceedings stretched across 3 months of motions, counter motions, financial audits, and increasingly desperate attempts by Raymond to maintain control. What began as an investigation into my liability on specific loans expanded into a comprehensive review of Raymond's business practices when the banks discovered irregularities beyond our family arrangements. They found evidence that loan proceeds were diverted from their stated purposes. Attorney Winters explained during our weekly update meeting. The Lake Geneva renovation loan partially funded a separate investment property that wasn't disclosed to the lender. "Is that illegal?" I asked. "It violates the terms of the loan agreement at minimum. Depending on how it was documented, it could constitute fraud. The bank is expanding their investigation accordingly." Raymond's initial aggressive stance gradually gave way to mounting panic as the walls closed in. He attempted to contact me through increasingly unlikely intermediaries, distant relatives, former classmates, even colleagues who barely knew me. "Your father seems to think we're close friends," said Marcus. A creative director I occasionally collaborated with. He called asking me to convince you to drop whatever legal actions you've initiated. I told him I wasn't involved, and he should speak with you directly. Thank you for letting me know, I replied, embarrassed by Raymond's boundary violations, but grateful for the heads up. Amanda cycled through a predictable pattern of emotions in her messages and voicemails. Anger. How could you do this to us, bargaining? What will it take for you to stop this guilt tripping? My children are suffering because of your actions, and finally tearful pleading. Please, Irvin, we're family. Whatever Dad did, don't punish all of us. Her appeals might have worked months earlier, when my sense of family obligation still outweighed my self-preservation instincts. Now, with clarity about the manipulation that had defined our relationships, I could see her messages for what they were: attempts to re-establish the dynamic where my needs were sacrificed for everyone else's benefit. Your sister is experiencing the natural consequences of a financially unsustainable arrangement. My therapist, Dr. Lawrence, observed during one of our sessions. I had started therapy 6 weeks into the separation, recognizing that professional support would be valuable in navigating the complex emotions involved. I still feel guilty about the impact on her children, I admitted. That's natural, he assured me. But remember, you didn't create this situation. Your father built a financial house of cards using your credit as a foundation without your informed consent. The collapse isn't your doing. The practical consequences of the financial unraveling became increasingly tangible. The Lake Geneva property was listed for sale at a significant discount to satisfy the defaulted loan. Amanda and James downsized from their Winnetka house to a townhouse in a less prestigious neighborhood. Raymond's commercial properties came under scrutiny from multiple lenders simultaneously, creating a cascade effect as each investigation triggered concerns with other financial institutions. Diana launched a whisper campaign within their social circle, telling anyone who would listen that I had betrayed the family out of jealousy and resentment. Some believed her narrative, leading to awkward encounters when I occasionally ran into family friends or business associates. I heard about the situation with your father, said Michael Grayson, a longtime family friend, when we unexpectedly met at a charity event. Such a shame when families fall apart over money. It wasn't about money, I corrected him. It was about respect, boundaries, and ethical behavior. His expression suggested skepticism, but I no longer felt compelled to convince others of my perspective. The validation I had sought for years, from my father, from family, friends, from anyone connected to that world, no longer seemed important. The constant stress took a toll on my relationship with Heather. We had been dating for less than a year when the family explosion occurred, and the intensity of the situation created pressure neither of us had anticipated. I feel like we're spending all our time dealing with your family drama, she said during a particularly difficult week. I support you completely, but I'm exhausted. I am too, I admitted. Maybe we should take a weekend away completely unplugged. No phone calls, no emails, no legal updates. That weekend in Michigan's harbor country became a turning point for us. Away from the constant reminders of the ongoing battle, we rediscovered the connection that had brought us together in the first place. Heather's direct nature, her clear-eyed perspective on healthy relationships, her ability to maintain boundaries without apology, all qualities that had attracted me initially, helped reinforce my resolve to see this process through. I'm not going anywhere, she assured me as we walked along the beach. But I needed to know we could still find joy together in the middle of all this. Trevor remained my steadfast defender, challenging anyone who repeated Diana's version of events and offering regular reminders of why I had taken action in the first place. Remember when you couldn't qualify for your own apartment because your debt-to-income ratio was so high from all those family loans? He pointed out during one moment of doubt. That's what you're fighting against, being financially hobbled by someone else's choices. The legal battle reached its climax when Raymond's attorney delivered a settlement offer in the third month. The terms revealed just how dramatically the power dynamic had shifted. My client proposes removing your name from all outstanding loans within 90 days, the document stated. In exchange, you will cease all communication with financial institutions regarding these matters and sign a non-disclosure agreement about family financial arrangements. They're offering exactly what you wanted, Attorney Winters noted as we reviewed the proposal. But the non-disclosure requirement is concerning. It suggests there may be additional issues they don't want discovered. Is it enforceable? I asked. Not if it covers potentially illegal activities, he explained. We should counter with language that excludes any legal or ethical obligations to report wrongdoing. Raymond fought the modified non-disclosure language vigorously, which only reinforced my suspicion that there were aspects of his business practices that wouldn't withstand scrutiny. The negotiation dragged on for another 3 weeks before he finally capitulated, faced with the alternative of continued bank investigations. The final settlement removed my name from all family loans, required Raymond to provide documentation proving the removal within 30 days, and included a mutual non-disparagement clause without the problematic non-disclosure requirements he had initially demanded. My father's attorney insisted on delivering the settlement in person rather than electronically, presumably to make one final attempt at manipulation. Raymond wants you to understand the gravity of what you've done, Bernard Wilson said, as he handed over the documents in Attorney Winter's conference room. These actions have damaged family relationships that may never be repaired. The damage occurred long before I took legal action. I replied calmly, I'm simply ensuring it doesn't continue into the future. The day the final confirmation arrived that my name had been removed from all loans, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't fully acknowledged I was carrying. For the first time in more than a decade, my financial future was truly my own, untangled from obligations I hadn't freely chosen, free from liabilities that benefited everyone but me. Amanda made one final attempt at reconciliation a week after the settlement was executed. She invited me to coffee at a neutral location, arriving alone and subdued compared to her previous emotional outbursts. I miss my brother, she said, simply after we had ordered. Despite everything, we're still family. What does family mean to you, Amanda? I asked, genuinely curious about her perspective. Her answer revealed the fundamental difference in our viewpoints. Family means supporting each other no matter what, standing together against the world, being loyal even when it's difficult. To me, family should mean respecting each other's boundaries, I countered. Wanting what's best for each person individually, not just what serves the group. Love that doesn't require submission to someone else's control. We talked for nearly 2 hours, circling around the core issue without resolution. Amanda couldn't separate the concept of family loyalty from compliance with Raymond's demands. In her world, challenging his authority wasn't just disagreement, it was betrayal of the family itself. Dad might be willing to reconcile if you apologized, she suggested as we prepared to leave. Apologize for what exactly? Protecting myself financially, refusing to sign loans that benefited everyone but me, responding to being cut off with appropriate legal action. Her silence acknowledged what we both knew. Raymond wasn't interested in reconciliation based on mutual respect and healthy boundaries. He wanted submission, a return to the status quo where his authority remained unchallenged. I hope someday we can find a way forward, I told her. But it would have to be based on a completely different understanding of what family means. As I watched her walk away, I felt both sadness and resolve. The legal battle was over, but the emotional aftermath was just beginning. The family I had known was irreparably changed. What might emerge from the wreckage remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: I would never again sacrifice my well-being on the altar of toxic family obligation. 1 year after the text message that shattered our family facade, I sat in Dr. Lawrence's office for what we had decided would be our final regular therapy session. The framed degrees on his wall had become familiar companions on my journey toward healing. "How are you feeling about this milestone?" he asked, his gentle tone unchanged, after 12 months of guiding me through the emotional aftermath of family estrangement. "Ready," I replied after considering the question. A year ago, I could barely function through the guilt and doubt. Now, I understand that protecting myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. The initial weeks after the legal settlement had been surprisingly difficult. With the tangible battle concluded, the emotional reality of estrangement hit with full force. Despite the manipulation and control that had characterized our relationship, Raymond was still my father. Amanda was still my sister. The absence of even a dysfunctional family left a void that couldn't be immediately filled. Grief doesn't require a death, Dr. Lawrence had explained during those early sessions. You're mourning the loss of the family you had, imperfect as it was, and also the family you always hoped they could become. That perspective helped me understand the waves of sadness that sometimes washed over me unexpectedly while passing a restaurant where we had celebrated family birthdays or during holidays that highlighted the absence of traditional gatherings. I wasn't grieving the actual relationships which had been unhealthy and damaging, but the normal family connections I had always craved. Working with Dr. Lawrence, I began identifying the patterns of manipulation that had defined my family dynamics since childhood. Raymond's criticism disguised as concern. The constant moving of goalposts for earning approval. The way Amanda was positioned as the good child to make me try harder for validation. Diana's reinforcement of the hierarchy through subtle undermining of my perspectives. These patterns weren't random, Dr. Lawrence explained. They were systematic methods of maintaining control. By recognizing them, you become less vulnerable to similar dynamics in the future. That recognition proved valuable beyond family relationships. I became more attuned to subtle manipulation in professional settings, better able to establish boundaries with colleagues, more confident in expressing my needs directly rather than hoping others would intuit them. Trevor remained a cornerstone of my support system, his friendship never wavering despite the intensity of the situation. "You're more yourself," now he observed, 6 months after the estrangement. "Less anxious about disappointing people, more comfortable in your own decisions." Heather's role in my life deepened as we weathered the storm together. Her straightforward nature had initially attracted me, but her steadfast support through the family crisis revealed a depth of character that transformed our relationship. On the anniversary of my mother's death, always a difficult day, but particularly painful during the estrangement, Heather arranged a quiet memorial that acknowledged my loss without judgment about the complicated family dynamics. "Your mother sounds like she tried to protect you from Raymond's controlling nature," she observed as we planted a flowering tree in my mother's memory. "I think she'd be proud of you for finally protecting yourself." Gradually, I built a chosen family of supportive friends who demonstrated what healthy relationships actually looked like. Mutual respect, clear communication boundaries that were acknowledged rather than treated as betrayals. Weekly dinners with Trevor and his wife Sarah. Game nights with colleagues who became friends outside work. Holiday celebrations with Heather's family, who welcomed me without the constant evaluation I had grown accustomed to. My career advanced once freed from the financial burdens and emotional stress of the family entanglements. The promotion I received 8 months after the settlement came with a significant salary increase and greater creative control over marketing campaigns. "Your confidence in client presentations has grown substantially," my director noted during my performance review. "You're more willing to stand behind your ideas even when they're initially challenged." The financial freedom that resulted from removing my name from the family loans allowed me to qualify for my own mortgage. Purchasing my first home, a brick 3-flat in Chicago's Ravenswood neighborhood, represented more than just a real estate investment. It was tangible proof that I could build security on my own terms without sacrificing autonomy for support. 10 months after the estrangement, with my life stabilizing in new patterns, I asked Heather to marry me during a weekend trip to Door County, Wisconsin. The ring I offered wasn't extravagant by Raymond standards, but it represented something more valuable, a commitment based on genuine connection rather than obligation or control. "Yes," she said simply, her eyes filling with tears as she added, "You've shown me what real strength looks like this past year." Planning our wedding highlighted the reality of family estrangement in practical ways. Who would walk with me during the ceremony? Would I invite extended family members who had maintained connections with Raymond? How would we handle inevitable questions about my parents' absence? "This is your celebration," Heather reminded me. "We'll create traditions that reflect who we are, not who others expect us to be." We decided on a small ceremony with only those who had supported our relationship, no obligations. No appearances for appearances' sake. Trevor would stand as my best man. Aunt Elaine, my mother's sister, would represent my maternal family. The guest list reflected quality of relationships rather than family obligation. 11 months into the estrangement, I received an unexpected email from Amanda. The subject line was simple: "When you're ready." "I've been seeing a therapist," she wrote. "At first, it was just to deal with the stress of everything that happened, but it's become more than that. I'm starting to understand some things about our family that I never questioned before. If you're open to it, I'd like to talk sometime. No pressure, no agenda, just 2 siblings, trying to find a new way forward. I read the message several times, looking for the manipulation tactics I had become adept at identifying. There were none, no guilt trips, no appeals to family obligation, no subtle blame, just an opening for connection on new terms. My response was cautious, but not closed. I appreciate you reaching out. I'd be open to coffee sometime next month, after things settle with work. I'm glad you're finding therapy helpful. Our meeting, when it finally happened, was tentatively hopeful. Amanda had indeed been doing her own work, beginning to recognize the unhealthy dynamics that had shaped our family. Dad and Diana separated, she shared halfway through our conversation. She left after the financial situation stabilized. Apparently their relationship wasn't as solid as it appeared once the lifestyle changed. The news didn't surprise me. Diana had always seemed more attached to the status and comfort Raymond provided than to Raymond himself. How was he handling it? I asked, surprised to find I still cared, despite everything. Not well, Amanda admitted. He's angry, blaming everyone but himself. He sold the house and moved into a condo downtown. Smaller, but still in a prestigious building, appearances matter to the end. Our conversation carefully avoided pressure for reconciliation. Amanda seemed to understand that our sibling relationship needed to develop independently from any relationship with our father. James and I are in couples counseling too, she added. The financial changes forced us to communicate more directly about priorities. It's been hard, but ultimately good for us. As we parted, she hesitantly asked if she could meet Heather sometime. No pressure, she added quickly. I just want to know the person who makes my brother happy. The request represented a small but significant shift, acknowledging my relationship as valuable in its own right, not just as it related to family approval. The journey toward healing wasn't linear. There were still difficult days, moments of doubt, occasional guilt about maintaining boundaries. Dr. Lawrence had prepared me for this reality. Healing isn't about never feeling pain from the estrangement, he explained. It's about not letting that pain dictate your choices moving forward. By the 1-year mark, I had reached a place of acceptance about the family rupture. Raymond had made no genuine attempts at reconciliation, only strategic overtures when he needed something specific. I maintained the boundaries that protected my well-being, while remaining open to authentic connection if it ever became possible. The most profound change was internal, the recognition that family was not defined by blood or legal ties, but by mutual respect, support for individual growth, and love that didn't require submission. The family I was building with Heather, the deep friendships I had cultivated, the relationship with Amanda that was cautiously evolving on healthier terms, these connections formed a new understanding of what family could be. Standing up for yourself was the hardest thing you've ever done, Dr. Lawrence observed in our final session. But it created space for authentic relationships built on respect rather than obligation. As I left his office that day, I felt a sense of completion. The text message that had once shattered my world had ultimately freed me to build something stronger from the fragments. The financial entanglements that had bound me to toxic relationships had been severed, allowing me to establish true independence. The painful reckoning had given way to genuine healing. Family estrangement remained a reality in my life, but it no longer defined me. I had found my own path, my own voice, my own definition of family, one based on choice rather than chance, on mutual support, rather than control, on love, that liberated rather than constrained. The most valuable loan you can make, I often reflect now, is extending trust to those who have earned it through consistent respect for your boundaries. It's a lesson learned at great cost, but one worth every painful payment along the way. Has a family member ever tried to control you through financial means? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content about setting healthy boundaries and building authentic relationships. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no to those who claim to love you, but show it only when you comply with their demands.